Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 9th chapter. Do Maharaj written homes from 48 verse onwards. Mataji, you can take out the call, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I believe, my Kindle just stopped. I believe Shamagori is going to do the Sanskrit, but I'm not sure which verse he's going to do.
I'm going to do verse number 4.9.48.
Okay.
Yeah, that's...
My apologies. My Sanskrit is not so good.
So, should I start, Mataji?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. Verse 4.9.48. Uttamasya dhruvashobha prema vivalo angasangam guru hatu. Translation.
Okay, I don't know if it's on my side, but things are not very clear. I hear a lot of noise. This is the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is composed by Vyasadeva and translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurabani Pacharane Nirvisesa Sunyabhari Vashtacha Deshatarane. We're born in the darkness of ignorance, but our kind spiritual masters are opening our eyes with their torchlight of knowledge. So we offer our humble and respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of such spiritual masters. So in this verse, the English is, the two brothers, Uttama and Dhruva Maharaj, also exchanged their tears. They were overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love and affection. And when they embraced one another, the hair on their bodies stood up on end. We're doing the next verse.
Yeah. Sunitirasya janani pranebhyopi priyam sutam upaguyya jahavadi gasparsha nirvrita.
Suniti, the real mother of Dhruva Maharaj, embraced the tender body of her son, who was dearer to her than her own life, and thus forgot all material grief, for she was very pleased. Text number 50.
Payastanabhya sutrava nitraje salile shive tada vishishyamanabhyam vira vira suomuhu.
My dear Vidura, Suniti was the mother of a great hero. Her tears, together with the milk flowing from her breast, wet the whole body of Dhruva Maharaj. This was a great and auspicious sign. So Srila Prabhupada's purport, when the deities are installed, they are washed with milk and yogurt and water, and this ceremony is called Abhishek. In this verse, it has been especially mentioned that the tears which flowed down from the eyes of Suniti were all auspicious. This auspiciousness of the Abhishek ceremony performed by his beloved mother was an indication that in the very near future, Dhruva Maharaj would be installed on the throne of his father. The history of Dhruva Maharaj's leaving home was that his father refused to give him a place on his lap, and Dhruva Maharaj determined that unless he got the throne of his father, he would not come back. Now, this Abhishek ceremony performed by his beloved mother was an indication that he would occupy the throne of Maharaj Uttanapada. It is also significant in this verse that Suniti mother of Dhruva Maharaj, is described as Virasu, a mother who produced a great hero. There are many heroes in the world, but there is no comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, who was not only a heroic emperor of this planet, but also a heroic devotee. A devotee is also a great hero because he conquers the influence of Maya. When Lord Chaitanya inquired from Ramananda Roy about the most famous man in this world, the latter replied that anyone who is known as a great devotee of the Lord is to be accepted as the most famous. So, it's a wonderful story, the activities of Dhruva Maharaj, and now he's returned from his austerities and penances, having become fortunate and having met the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. And in this situation, his heart has changed. So when he left for the forest, he was very angry, and he was very determined to get a kingdom greater than his father. And he performed so many austerities and penances. And Krishna appeared and benedicted him. And then he realized that all this desire for material acquisition and position and fame and fortune was not what he was looking for. He compared it to broken glass. He was looking for broken glass, but he got a jewel. So when he came back, of course, his heart was changed. He greeted his father. He even greeted his unkind stepmother, offered his respects to his mother and his stepmother, and then he greeted his brother. So all of his anger and his jealousy and his envy or desire for power and position had faded away, and his heart was pure. So his mother was like a spiritual master. She's the one who gave him the original direction. He went to her and said, "What do I do? This situation is terrible. My father won't let me on his lap. He's let my brother on his lap. I'm so angry. What can I do?" And his mother told him that he should look for shelter at the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Dhruva, at a very young age, went off to the forest. And Narada Muni tried to stop him, told him that he should just return. But he was very determined that he was going to get what he wanted, and he was going to look for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to get what he wanted. So all was successful, and he came back. So Srila Prabhupada goes on to talk about great heroes, and he was talking about someone who is a devotee. A devotee is also a great hero because he conquers the influence of Maya. Now, in the world that we're in, we see all kinds of so-called heroes. I mean, different heads of countries in the eyes of simple and ignorant people, maybe a hero or somebody who's a great singer or a musician or an artist. They're somebody's hero. But from the standpoint of a great devotee and the Lord, a hero is someone who's able to conquer the material nature and be situated in devotional service. And I just wanted to bring up the fact that tomorrow is the birthday of one of those types of people who Prabhupada said was his spiritual master, and that's Lord Jesus. So we see all the activity at this particular time. People are rushing like mad, buying all kinds of things for other people, gifts that a lot of times never be used or not really needed. So much money is being spent. The malls are full, the shops are full, everyone's spending like crazy. but they're forgetting the actual reason for the celebration. I was in the post office the other day, and the lady behind the counter was offering stamps. People wanted stamps. So she said, do you want Santa Claus or do you want the Madonna with Jesus? And they all said they wanted Santa Claus, of course, because he's the icon for the season. So in their unfortunate, ignorant pursuit after the material holiday of Christmas, they're forgetting the actual reason for the celebration, which is the birth of a great servant of the Lord, Jesus, who did conquer the material energy and Maya, and who did become an extremely famous person, one of the most famous people, I would say, in the world. But also, I gave a class one time at Christmas about St. Nicholas. You see, Santa Claus comes from St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas was a Christian person who was from a wealthy family, who became a bishop. He actually used to give things to people. He would give gold to someone who had no dowry to get the daughters married, and the daughters would have fallen into a bad situation. So he threw coins in a little bag through the window so no one would see it was him. He became very famous for his giving and care on a spiritual platform for people. And he became St. Nicholas. And he actually wore a red and a white garb. And he also became the patron saint of the sea. So when the pilgrims came over to the United States, on their vessels, they had pictures of St. Nicholas. So when they got to America, and after some time, from what I read, Coca-Cola made St. Nicholas into Santa Claus, and it became a very commercial holiday, where it's actually supposed to be a very spiritual, holy day. I just wanted to bring that up because of the timing. So Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Roy, who is the most famous man in this world? The latter replied that anyone who is known as a great devotee of the Lord is to be accepted as the most famous. So in our culture, we have a lot of famous people. We have Haridas Thakur, we have Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Madhavendra Puri, I'm reading a book about Tukaram. And of course, Srila Prabhupada was a great hero. He conquered the influence of Maya, not only for himself, but for anyone who wanted to take his shelter. Srila Prabhupada's influence of conquering Maya is very vast and is spreading. Such a simple, humble person coming over with basically no material possessions, but on a mission. I mean, we really have no idea how strong Prabhupada's calling was from Krishna. He just had to do this service. He had to come to the West. And even though he had nothing, he still set out. He had tried in his youth to make money to come to the West. And it kept failing over and over again. So, in my estimation, Prabhupada's coming to the West the way he did glorifies him even more. I mean, personally, when I just came down here from New Vrindavan, I had all my credit cards, I had cash, I had a I was coming to. I had a very reliable car. Everything I had in its place. But Prabhupada set out with nothing, knowing nobody in the United States, didn't know what he would meet with, being warned by Srimati Mataji that he would die in the West. And just with his books, you can see why he's referred to as a general. He's one of Lord Chaitanya's generals who came to preach. And we see other great devotees like Gorkishore Das Babaji, who was also a great hero, but he was not someone who openly preached out in the battlefield like Srila Prabhupada did. Prabhupada came to the battlefield of America. Being raised in America, I really know the inside and out of the American non-culture. It's just based on breaking the regulative principles. The standard of human life starts at the regulative principles, following a lifestyle that's pure. And Prabhupada came to a place that he knew was so far below the standard of civilized life. And he came over with great determination to preach. And he made that beautiful prayer on the Jaladuta that he didn't know who could understand because of their habits. And he asked Krishna, if you want me to do this service, you have to help. You can make me dance. You have to empower my words. So there was Srila Prabhupada standing alone in New York, not knowing exactly how to go about this mission. So he was looking at the time, seeing the influence, seeing the audience that he was to deliver the message to. And he found an audience that would listen, not in India, not to the diplomats and so many people that Prabhupada wrote to and tried to present Krishna consciousness to in India, not to Gandhi, not to any of these people, not on the streets of Bombay where you would expect people to want to understand. But no, they were all with their head towards America. Oh, this company is wealthy. Let's follow them. So there was Prabhupada. And who did he find as an audience? The disillusioned young people of America. Many of them from well-to-do families, but seeking, having tasted the influence of material success and living in families that had everything, their hearts were not happy. They didn't have the satisfaction that they were looking for. So many of them became very ripe candidates for Prabhupada's message. He had a positive alternative. And he started preaching in Tompkins Square Park to people that we probably would not even say hello to on the street. If you had been in Haight-Ashbury, where they started the temple in San Francisco, if you had been in New York, or in any place where this huge group of young, crazy hippies was gathering, you probably would cross the street and go to the other side. But Srila Prabhupada, being who he was, went right into the midst of the whole thing. If you've ever been to a rock concert, in those days, it was like madness. All these young people, hundreds of young people on drugs and doing all kinds of unusual things. And there's Prabhupada entering into the Avalon Ballroom to do the mantra rock dance. And because of his great potency, he was able to walk right up on stage and get all of those young crazy hippies that were all totally intoxicated to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. The 6 Goswamis had a certain quality of purity and love for the soul, for the person, and that attracted everybody. Even the ruffians, it said, didn't bother the 6 Goswamis. They had respect for them. So here was Prabhupada coming to a group that very few older people could approach. There was like a saying, don't trust anyone over, I think it was 25. You know, they weren't hip. They didn't know where it was at. They weren't cool. They weren't with it. They were just like, you know, out of it. But here's Prabhupada at 70 years old walking into the middle of these young people who were very critical young people. They didn't want to be cheated. They didn't want to go to war. They didn't want to die for the Vietnam War for a purpose they had nothing to do with and no respect for. But when Prabhupada came on stage, they all acknowledged him and joined him in chanting because Krishna had empowered Prabhupada. I know when I first met Srila Prabhupada, it was so apparent who he was. He had a love for me that nobody else had. Everyone else's connection with me was based on wanting something from me or to engage in some material, pleasurable activity. Prabhupada was in a different place, and somehow or other, Krishna gave the eyes to see. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I don't know if I told you the story the last time. I think I might have, about Advaita Acharya from New Vrindavan, how even his family, if they saw him on the street, would cross the street. He was such a you know, they're gangs of New York. He was, you know, just a tough guy. And he had a lot of friends in his group. But when they came in contact with Prabhupada's books even, and Prabhupada's picture, it's like, yes, this is it. And several of them dropped everything and became devotees. Just, I mean, the amazing potency of Srila Prabhupada. When Krishna wants something done, he often sends his general. And Prabhupada was one of those people. And it was apparent when you met him. It was apparent. It's actually a great causeless mercy to somehow or other have been able to meet Srila Prabhupada. It changed our life. It gave us a purpose and a mission. And I see as things have gone on that so many of Prabhupada's disciples, because they've picked up that mission, have become so empowered too. And then more and more people are coming. And even second generation of Prabhupada's disciples are also very empowered preachers and doing great things. It's like a rock that goes into a pond. There's one circle, and then there's another circle, and another circle, and another circle, and another circle. It's just so encouraging to see how Srila Prabhupada's service has expanded so much all over the world because people are seeing the mission and the message, and it's changed their life. And they want to share that with other people. Went on book distribution the other day on Saturday with some of the ladies. Sri Vrindavan from Alachua, she heads up the Christmas marathon, and they have a book distribution party that goes out, a small group. And we went door to door. And, you know, Vaisheshika Prabhu was here not too long ago, and he gave a seminar on how to do books door to door. So the ladies I was with Ekadasi Vrata Prabhu and Sri Vrindavan Prabhu, they were saying the same thing. They knocked on the door, presented the Bhagavad Gita directly, showed pictures, and started talking. And, most of the people were polite and said no thank you. But a couple of the people, like one girl, she was, wow, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. She was a young girl, like 25. She was a waitress, also going to school. And she immediately took the Bhagavad Gita, and Sri Vrindavan started showing her the pictures and preaching to her. And it's like that's the success of the day. And then Yadubar and Vishaka's daughter, their youngest daughter, is like this just beautiful soul, just an empowered soul. She distributed, and she's never done books before, she distributed 10 Bhagavad Gitas. Just something about her purity and her association, and people were taking the books. It's just such a beautiful, potent movement. So I was also looking at the 26 qualities of the devotee, and I am going to read them. And just give me a minute here. I wrote them down, but I also brought it up on my iPad. So, 26 qualities of a devotee. Number 1, kind to everyone. When you met Srila Prabhupada, he was like the kindest person. You felt totally comfortable around him. I mean, years later when you found out who he was, but on the first meeting, you were just very comfortable in this association. I know when I went, I don't know if it was the second time I went to the temple when Prabhupada was there in Hawaii, or the first time, I brought my Bhagavad Gita. He asked me to bring my Bhagavad Gita, and I sat down with him at his little desk, and he started showing me different things. And then somewhere in the conversation, he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Do you like me?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I just love you." I mean, he was just like your best friend, your father, it was just like such a nice door that Krishna opened for me, because had I not had that personal contact and that affection for Srila Prabhupada, my life would have been different. But he was so kind. I was so happy to be with him. Number 2, does not quarrel with anyone. You see, all the years that Srila Prabhupada was with us and the tremendous number of people that he met with, the only time you see Prabhupada, and I wouldn't exactly call it quarreling, but arguing his point, is when he was trying to give someone a higher vision of Krishna consciousness than they had. Someone who might have said that they were God, or that God didn't exist, or that it's okay to eat meat. Prabhupada would at that point become very strong. But our mundane type of quarreling, you never saw Prabhupada do. He didn't quarrel with someone about petty things. It wasn't in his nature. Number 3, fixed in the absolute truth. I mean, all the people that traveled with Srila Prabhupada and everything that you hear in the memories and the Lilamrita, Prabhupada was fixed. He was fixed in the absolute truth. Everything he did was centered around his spiritual connection with Krishna. I mean, we're fortunate we have started our Krishna consciousness, and we spend time, which is so valuable, in chanting and hearing and associating with devotees, going to the temple, serving the deities, all the processes of devotional service. Our door is open. the organization Prabhupada established has spread in such a way as to be a house in which everyone could live, a shelter for so many souls on so many levels. We have so many opportunities for staying Krishna conscious. But our nature is such that we aren't on the level of pure devotional service on the level that Srila Prabhupada was on. So we find ourselves a lot of times in a mundane consciousness. So we're learning to dovetail our material activities and thoughts and family and money in the service of Krishna. So that's certainly to our advantage. And our japa, I have to say, sometimes when you hear people chant japa, you can hear that they're not chanting the whole mantra. I know I've been to japa retreats where they're talking about really making sure you're chanting the whole mantra, not just rushing through your rounds to get them done, but actually, I think the thing that's always said is people say, Hare Krishna, Ram, 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 Ram. Hare Krishna, Ram, 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 Ram. And you actually hear people chanting like that in the temple or wherever you hear people chanting japa. So just to be sure that we're chanting properly, it's to our advantage. So 4, equal to everyone. Prabhupada really didn't care if they were poor hippies on the street that had so many bad habits, or ministers that he preached to, or politicians that he preached to. Prabhupada was seeing the soul, seeing the relationship with Krishna, and working on that platform. So he was equal to everyone. I know that that verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, let me find it, I have it here. Oh, I lost it. That the sage, he sees with equal vision the dog eater. Anyway, I had it here, but I lost it.
Yeah,
it's in the Srimad it's in the Bhagavad Gita.
Hare Krishna Mataji, can I say that verse?
Yeah, sure.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihattini Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Thank you for the service.
Could you say it in English?
Yeah, a humble sage, by the virtue of knowledge, he sees with equal vision a dog eater, a cow, a brahmana, and I don't have the book, but I'm just recollecting. It's 5.29, I think.
Yeah,
Chapter
I actually, anyway, that's why I have my book here, but I don't have it open now. He sees with equal vision all living entities, and that's what Prabhupada did. He was able to meet anybody, and we see the stories of Prabhupada dealing with animals, monkeys, dogs. Malati was telling the story of how they had put the prasadam down in front of Prabhupada, and there was these vicious dogs. Prabhupada was sitting on the ground with the devotees, and these vicious dogs were barking and running towards Prabhupada. And some of the devotees got up to physically confront them, and Prabhupada stopped them. And they came up, and he broke his chapati in pieces and distributed to the dogs. I mean, he had such a relationship. I know even for us, we used to do a Harinam on Sunset Beach in Hawaii when we first located our temple from Ka'ava to Sunset Beach. And there was a dog that used to come every time we sat down and had a kirtan outside. He would come and listen. There's so many stories of animals. Prabhupada would take care of the insects. He would lift them up and put them outside. Or he told Narayan Prabhu that you see those ants on the table, and Narayan said that he didn't see any ants, but Prabhupada said, you should preach to those ants. And it's interesting. I know a couple of years ago I was extremely sick. And, sickness affects the mind and the body as well, our enthusiasm. And I was working in the garden, and I kept thinking of something Radhanath Swami had said years before. And I was weeding. I was working in the temple flower garden, and it was my service because I wanted to be outside. I took the service and planted the flowers and helped with the weed. I was doing a lot of weeding, and I was so unhappy because I was killing all of these living entities. I was pulling them out, taking their life away, and then I'd put the shovel in the ground to plant flowers, and I'd cut a worm in half, and there'd be all these bugs running away, and it was a very intimidating service at that time because I was so sensitive to suffering. And so I just started chanting. I did the service, but I was chanting the whole time and apologizing for taking the life of all these living entities. So anyway, we're fortunate to be able to develop some better consciousness. So, faultless. Number 5, faultless. You really couldn't find fault with Srila Prabhupada. There's a devotee who passed away a few years ago. His name is Nathji, and he was a wealthy businessman from Bombay, Srinathji. And Prabhupada, when he came to Bombay, Nathji was younger, and he would spend time with Nathji's father, who was a Vaishnava, who was very happy to give Prabhupada money and help him in his mission way back in the beginning. And Nathji was very cynical, a very cynical person. And he just thought that Prabhupada was taking advantage of his father. And he was out to prove the point to his father. And at that time, Nathji was following an impersonalist guru. And so he tells the story himself that he tried on every level to find fault with Srila Prabhupada. And if you know Nathji, he is a very cunning, intelligent, strong person. He could not find fault with Prabhupada. And then he finally had to surrender. So a pure devotee is faultless. Number 6, charitable. Now, there's different kinds of charity, of course. We can give money to a beggar, which Bhaktisiddhanta did not disapprove of. And we see Prabhupada's own example in Mayapur when he realized that the children in the area way back when they were in the grass shack were eating the plates and had to fight the dogs to get the remnants of the plates of the devotees. They were so poor. He established the temple should feed people. No one should go hungry with, I think he said, a 10-mile radius or 100-mile radius. And they distribute prasadam in Mayapur because of that instruction. And also, we see, I believe ISKCON is the top vegetarian food distribution in the world today. And we see the wonderful programs like the midday meals that feeds like 1.5 million children every day. There's a lot of projects that are because of Prabhupada's charitable disposition. But above all of that type of charity, but of course it's prasadam. Above that, Prabhupada, his charity was in distributing knowledge. That was his topmost mission. the charity of knowledge, the charity of lifting the fallen soul out of his ignorance to place him at the lotus feet of the Lord and giving him an opportunity to take back his position as servant of the Lord. Mild. Pure devotee is mild. Srila Prabhupada was a very mild person. Of course, when there was a challenge, Prabhupada was like a lion, as Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was. But mild. Clean. Srila Prabhupada is extremely clean. I mean, not only did he bathe so many times a day and wash his clothes every day, this is not a common thing. Not everybody washes their clothes every day. Not everybody takes a bath every day. Not everyone takes a bath twice a day. I believe I mentioned when Prabhupada came to Hawaii, I can't remember what year it was, but I was at the temple and I'm a seamstress. So they asked me to cover Prabhupada's cushions for his room. These big bolsters. Prabhupada sat on a cushion, had a huge bolster behind him and smaller bolsters on the side. So they gave me this blue velveteen cloth that was cotton, and I covered them, and he came, and he wanted them covered in white. So the next day I had to recover them in white. He said white shows the dirt, and so it's easily cleaned. Whereas the dark color doesn't show the dirt, so people won't clean it. And also when Prabhupada came to Detroit, they had a beautiful room for him. Alfred Ford, Ambarish Prabhu, and Govardhan Prabhu, they gave him this beautiful room, beautiful carpets, expensive carpets. Prabhupada said, no, I don't want carpets. Carpets are dirty. So he had them covered in these big white sheets. So when he went into Prabhupada's room, you sat on the sheet that was on top of the carpet, because then they could lift the sheet off and wash the sheet and put it back down. Just so practical. Simple. Prabhupada was a very simple person. He had a cooker, a four-tiered cooker, I believe it was, and he cooked everything at the same time as rice, the dal, the sabjis. He was a very simple person. He came with just a small suitcase, a few sets of clothes. I mean, I look around. I'm down in Florida from New Vrindavan, and I have a storage shed, and I'm amazed at all the stuff I've got. You know, I don't have like 2 sets of clothes. I've got so many, I'm just like, oh my God, I've got to get rid of some of these clothes. And I'm not, I'm not an extremely materialistic person. I can't imagine what other people are doing. They're working hard, they're going to the mall, they're buying all kinds of clothes, and then you see all these nice new clothes in the Goodwill, Salvation Army, flea markets. There's just an abundance of things that people don't need. So a simple approach to life. Simple living, high thinking. That's what Prabhupada coined. Simple living, high thinking. That's us. That's what we're supposed to aim for. So, number 10, benevolent. Prabhupada was a very benevolent person. When you met him, like the people he stayed with in Butler, Pennsylvania, she was an American. She didn't really want Srila Prabhupada there at the beginning. And then because Prabhupada was so benevolent, she fell in love with him. She just loved him. She came to New Vrindavan several times and just talked about how wonderful Prabhupada was. He was so benevolent. Peaceful. Srila Prabhupada was a peaceful person. He was strong. He was on a mission. He had a lot to say, but he was peaceful. He wasn't always in anxiety about his future and his possessions, and there's a certain peace in that detachment. Completely attached to Krishna. Prabhupada was that. That's why we see the International Society for Krishna Consciousness reflects Prabhupada's complete attachment to Krishna. Take care of Krishna. Don't let this movement lose ground. Push on Krishna consciousness. He was trying to please Krishna. That was his whole goal. Number 13 has no material hankering. You actually, we're in Prabhupada's association that way, but to see that someone could come to the West, associate with people from the West, and make an organization that has thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars coming through it, and not buy anything for himself. That's really uncommon. Didn't buy a car, didn't buy a house, didn't say, hey, I'm going to go shopping today and go to the mall and buy a ring and a new set of clothes and whatever. Nothing. And people would give Prabhupada gold Rolex watches. He would wear them for a while. Someone else would come along, give him a Timex watch. He would take off the gold Rolex and give it to the person that gave him the Timex and wear the Timex. That's very, very unheard of, very unusual. Meek. Prabhupada was a meek person. He was not all about himself. He wasn't always walking around going, look at me, I'm a pure devotee. I'm so great. Look, I've got this big following. I'm so important. He was actually a meek person. Steady, super steady. Srila Prabhupada was super steady. Chanted, rose early, ate simply, always on time. He was a very steady person. Somehow or other, the materialistic look on things is, if you're materially together, you can, take it easy, lay back, do whatever, whenever. One of the worst things to happen to people is that they win the lottery, because they lose their footing on they're not so organized anymore. They think that they should just go out and do whatever, go wherever. They've got all this money, now they're free. And then they ruin their life. Oops. Okay, self-controlled. Srila Prabhupada was very self-controlled. He was just serving Krishna. He was happy. I was on book distribution the other day, and this young man from somewhere else in Florida, he was a young Indian man who was coming to the temple. He comes down to the temple regularly. And he was distressed. He was talking to me. He said, it's very difficult, even though we're taking up this process, we're doing as much as we can do, we still have all of these desires that make us almost lose control of our senses. And but Prabhupada's, you have to be patient. We're fallen, and we have to be patient with our situation. And if we lose control, that's not unusual. But then when you see Prabhupada's example, there's hope. We have an example of someone who's got these qualities, and he's telling us how to change life to get to that place. 17, does not eat more than required. Prabhupada ate well, but he didn't stuff himself. I remember when we first started the temple in Hawaii in Honolulu, and we would have these huge feasts, just huge feasts, and the devotees would eat and eat and eat and eat, and by the end of the feast, everyone was laying down because they were their stomach was so full that they were almost in misery. And Prabhupada actually encouraged that in the beginning, because the people that Prabhupada was dealing with were so used to eating abominable things and things made by outside people with no devotion, that he encouraged them in the prasada meeting. But Prabhupada himself only ate what he needed. He had a very simple diet. He did not, I've never heard a story of Prabhupada like requesting that he have samosas and halva and kachoris at every meal. And I mean, of course he ate those things. And he apparently loved kachoris when he was young, but he wasn't like, and then ice cream and cake, and he was very controlled in his eating. He ate what was required, a wonderful, simple diet, but he ate extremely well. Such a nice example. Number 18, sane. Prabhupada was sane. Now that's actually saying a lot. It's not that his mind got out of control with worry, frustration, or desire, or he had a very level. Prabhupada was leaving his body, and he was sane. Sane to the point that he was translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's amazing. That's an amazing position to be in. Number 19, respectful. Prabhupada was respectful to everybody. Now here's a person who's coming from Vrindavan, the highest quality of life, the highest consciousness, pure in everything, and coming and preaching to a bunch of meat-eating, drug-taking, illicit sex-mongering people. But he was so respectful. I mean, the quality of fault-finding is not there in a pure devotee. And we can look at our own thoughts, and we can find fault with anybody doing anything, even if they're doing devotional service. They're doing an artik, they're chanting japa, they're singing a kirtan. Oh, well, they're not doing it right. Look at this, wrong, that's wrong. We have such a tendency. And so our ability to actually respect others is limited. But when someone doesn't have the quality of fault-finding, they're able to respect other living entities. Such a different platform. Number 20, humble. Prabhupada was definitely a humble person. It takes great humility to do what Prabhupada did and not just be like, lose it. We're so unhumble that we find ourselves getting angry at other people, finding fault with other people, just thinking we're better. I mean, it's actually a weed. It's part of our devotional service to water the plant of devotion, bhakti. But along with that plant, there's weeds that grow. And one of them is pride. Pride is a very dangerous weed. What is that? It's an old Christian saying, pride cometh before a fall. If we think that we're better than everybody else, which it's very easy to do in our conditioned state, it's easy to fall. But Prabhupada didn't have that pride. He just didn't have that pride. He gives credit to his disciples. He gave credit to a spiritual master. He gave credit to Krishna. And you never hear him saying, how great I am. Look what I did. I'm so wonderful. Look at the books I did. Don't you see how great I am? You never see that attitude. Not the words, not the attitude. And we can do some small thing, and we want, oh, look at what I did. Look at, I did this one drop of whatever. And I'm just like, even a pauper is proud of his penny in Kali Yuga. And we have a lot of pennies that we think are so great. There's Yugala Kishore, disciple of Radhanath Swami. He works in Michigan, wonderful soul. He always says, I'm preaching to myself. So in many cases, I'm preaching to myself here. 21, grave. Prabhupada was very grave. He was not a fool. He didn't act a fool. He didn't push others to act in foolish ways. It's one of the things he told me. He said, you should be very serious always. It's easy to become foolish in our conditioned state. We have to be careful. But Prabhupada, fortunately, was very grave. Anytime you listen to a class of Prabhupada, he may be humorous, but it's grave. Prabhupada's words, stories you hear from others, Prabhupada was humorous, but grave at the same time. 22, compassionate. Only an extremely compassionate person would put himself in the position to come to the West to preach amongst the Mlechas and then travel all over the world. Prabhupada was extremely compassionate. He is following the beautiful, compassionate Lord. Lord Chaitanya is the munificent incarnation of God, come to give what no other incarnation has given so easily, love of God. If we understood how fortunate we are, we would be amazed. Prabhupada says that Lord Chaitanya is just so compassionate to come himself, to send his teachers, his great generals, to uplift us. We just have to accept it. 23, friendly. Prabhupada was very friendly. I have to say, the first time I met Srila Prabhupada, he greeted us at the door, invited us in, brought us into his room, sat us down, and started talking to us. He didn't know who we were. We came to the temple in Honolulu. It wasn't in Honolulu, it was in Kaava. Prabhupada was there by himself. I guess he heard the car drive up, or maybe he was hanging his clothes. I don't know what he was doing that he heard us. We just drove up, and all of a sudden there he was, out on the balcony of the top stairs, just telling us to come up the stairs. Not everyone. If someone you don't know comes to your door, do you invite them in? I don't, without knowing who they are. Yeah, he just invited us in, and we sat down and started talking. So poetic. Srila Prabhupada was poetic. We see his beautiful poetry that he wrote on the Jaladuta, the offerings he wrote to his spiritual master. Prabhupada was poetic. Silent. Silent means that one doesn't talk about anything but Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada talked a lot, but he was silent. He only talked about Krishna. 26, expert. Srila Prabhupada was super expert on every field. He was an expert cook. He was an expert at preaching. He was an expert at dealing with people. He was an expert in planning ISKCON and how this mission would go on. He was a great general and very expert in his dealings. So I think I've run the course here. Just wondering if anyone has any questions. Thank you very much for tolerating me. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to give it a try, see if I can answer them.
Hare Krishna Mataji, very, very wonderful. You describe all the 26 qualities of Srila Prabhupada. And also you describe Dhruv Maharaj. And very nice class. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. This is Kaumudaki Dasi from Baltimore. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you very much. Is the class actually, did I talk long enough, or is, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask what time class is supposed to end.
Well, you talk very nicely, and it's just right. If somebody has a question, they can ask question, it will be good. If somebody has comment, they can say comment, and then whatever question answer. Then now it's question answer session. Thank you. Hare Krishna. I don't have question, but it was very wonderful class. And I also remember that class that you gave me at our house. And Gopi Gita section, one verse. This is very nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam.
Yes.
It was a very, very beautiful class, and thank you so much. You described how Srila Prabhupada came to West, what kind of audience he had. So moving, and I could see that he had, dived into the sea of material America and got the pearls like yourself, that we can see how successful was his mission. We really thank you, and we are indebted to you for giving your youth, your life, your energy, your wealth, your everything to Krishna, and giving us an example of how we should follow in your footsteps. Thank you so much. So my question is, you said about that how devotee is not conquered by Maya, but conquers Maya. So, of course, we have to be patient, but many times Krishna makes us know that where we are when we slip away in many, day-to-day dealings, how much amount of anarthas is there in the heart. So how can we positively get encouraged and keep trying ourselves so that one day we can become pure enough to reach Krishna?
Well, I believe in the Lord Chaitanya's discussion with Ramananda Roy, they were talking about importance of certain activities in our devotion. And the final conclusion, to my understanding, is the association of devotees. I mean, if we were, say we didn't have this ISKCON, say we just had Prabhupada's book. We found a book in a library, and we were reading it, and, we would have very little opportunity. We could try and chant, we could try and find a picture of Lord Chaitanya or maybe a picture in the book and use that, but it would be very difficult. But in the situation we have a whole worldwide society that's very active. And there's so many seminars like Sadhusanga, like Bhakti, what is his name? Sachinandam Swami is doing a seminar in New Vrindavan in May. So we have our 24-hour kirtans. We have ISKCON Desire Tree with many lectures from so many great people. We have Mayapur TV, where any time of the day we can watch a kirtan or a lecture. We have books about so many facets of Krishna consciousness right now, from what you eat to Vedic archaeology to, so many topics. There's so many books now. We just need to take the opportunity. We have to mold our life in such a way to be able to fit Krishna into our lifestyle. In other words, we don't expand our material circle. We expand our spiritual circle. And gradually we make progress. I mean, it's just when we get to a certain point in our spiritual life or in our age, like my age group, we're all in our 60s, 70s, or 80s. It's time to really focus. Although in the beginning, most of us were very focused, we've also gotten families, and many people got jobs and houses and so many things that complicate and take our time. So that's why we have to simplify. We simplify our life in such a way that we find more time for our spiritual endeavor, culminating in renunciation, like real total renunciation, and just serving at the temple or finding a way to serve where you are, just going out and doing books, not doing business. I mean, at a certain point, if you can do it, then that's the great opportunity. Now, our desires may be such that we're not able to do it because we still have such strong desires. But we're assured, as we chant offensively and engage in devotional service, offering our food, reading, studying, that the material desires will be extinguished, right? The spiritual master extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. That's our good fortune. But patience, we have to be patient, because it takes time, or it could take, like Prabhupada said, Krishna. You can become Krishna conscious immediately, but I haven't seen that too often. But we're sure it's there. So I hope that was an answer.
Yeah, thank you so much for Mataji. It was a very great answer. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for very enlightening class today and your valuable time, Mataji. Class was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Mataji, Hare Krishna, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. So inspiring class, Mataji. Pray for us that we will serve Srila Prabhupada. Yes, we are not qualified, but still in your mood, Mataji, and very seriously follow the Radhanath Maharaj instructions, especially for japa and book distribution. Thank you, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. Hari Bol. Jai Shri Radhe.
Okay. Thank you very much for tolerating me and inviting.
No, Mataji. We just like that hear more Srila Prabhupada Vani. So please give your assistance regularly.
Yeah, it's nice to bring the person Srila Prabhupada into the conversation. It makes it a little closer. Makes our Krishna consciousness and hearing from Prabhupada a little stronger, to hear his personal activities.
You know, Mataji, we are so fortunate that we get a Srila Prabhupada disciple blessing and Srila Prabhupada disciple association. It's just like a special training of our Radhanath, our Gurudeva. Thank you very much, Mataji. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
And I did talk to Malati, and she's also going to do a class for you guys. So I thought that was nice.
Thank you. Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Bol.
Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Very, very wonderful class, Mataji. Thank you so much for talking about Srila Prabhupada. He is our hero. Like it says in purport that a devotee is also a great hero. So Srila Prabhupada is our hero. So thank you so much, Mataji.
Mataji, when small difficulties came in the path of bhakti, we become depressed. And when we hear Srila Prabhupada's Vani from Srila Prabhupada disciple, how much they sacrifice, Mataji, and it inspires us, Mataji. And but pranam to your sincere seva. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
Bye. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm glad he came. I would have been in a mess had he not come. We're actually having a a reunion, a 50th reunion in Hawaii in a few weeks. So we'll all be going to Hawaii Temple and doing some service and talk about it. Srila Prabhupada and the Hawaii Yatra. Should be very nice. There's one disciple of Radhanath Swami. Her name is Harinam, and she lives in New Vrindavan. And they don't have a lot of money, but somehow or other, she's very determined. They save everything and just spend it to go and see Radhanath Swami. She's always leaving New Vrindavan because Maharaj is in Chicago or is in New York or is in the Bahamas and she's in India at the retreat, and that's all they spend their money on. So I guess if you have that kind of determination, you can do a lot and go a lot of places and be with the great souls that inspire you. All right, very good. Thank you so much. And all glories to your service, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all of your spiritual masters.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Let's pay obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and Mataji. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. 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 Mataji ki jai.